I'm sure that we all share a common uneasiness about the current charged and often vitriolic environment in which the most important issues of our time are debated: widespread terrorism, Arab-Israeli peace, immigration, and heated race relations. I recently read 2 articles on effectiveness and leadership, one in Forbes and one in Harvard Business Review. A few quotes jumped out at me, which I think will help frame today's program and will help you understand how AJC approaches its work and why it is effective. At its essence, leadership is about action. That said, leaders who act before they understand don't tend to achieve the outcomes they desire. Simply broadcasting your message ad nauseum will not have the same result as engaging in meaningful conversation. The most effective leaders are the ones who listen to others and help them to connect their desires, perspectives, and interests with the larger outcome we all ultimately want to achieve. And the last one, don't just listen to those who agree with you, but actively listen to dissenting opinions and thoughts. Listen to those that confront you, challenge you, stretch you, and develop you. Why am I sharing this? It's because AJC understands the importance of hearing, not just pontificating or rushing to act. AJC has been listening for 110 years. This listening, this engaging with people who may not agree, has earned AJC a seat at the table at some of the most important conversations across the globe. AJC's business is building long-term strategic alliances with influential political and religious leaders across all nations and faiths, advocating for policies and values we cherish and securing positive results that we can be proud of. If AJC is about building relationships, how do you measure its success? With all the choices of worthy causes, why choose AJC? For me, I choose AJC because it's out front every day, strategizing and acting upon the many issues that keep me up at night. AJC understands the complexity of these issues, acknowledges the multiple narratives and claims, and thinks strategically and tactically on how best to engage with others to advance its goals. AJC is listening and understanding, researching and strategizing, having the frank, hard, exhaustive conversations, and taking action. They are in our corner, not just on behalf of Jews, but on behalf of every person who seeks the most basic assurances: democracy, compassion, protection, and peace.
I love this space, Guastavino, for a number of reasons, but among them because to me it symbolizes in a way, a very real way, what AJC is all about. I don't want to sow panic, but right above us is a bridge. It's survived this long, so I'm assuming when you hear the rumble of cars and trucks, it'll likely survive the next 2 hours. But most importantly, this bridge is what AJC is all about. It's about building bridges. Not bridges between boroughs, as in the case of the 59th Street Bridge, but building bridges between and among people. People of different nationalities, people of different races, people of different religions, people of different beliefs. This is the essence of AJC. And it's precisely the weapon of choice against those who would divide us. And there are many in this world and some in this country who are determined to divide us. We stand with this bridge in uniting people and not allowing others to divide us. We are in a defining time in the history of the world. And as one young man, a friend of our oldest son, Danny, who's now 36, said in a phone call to me a few weeks ago, while working as a lawyer at a prominent firm, "Mr. Harris, I feel as a Jew the walls are beginning to close in. It's getting closer. I think twice before I go to Paris. I think twice before I go to Brussels. I think twice before giving advice about junior year abroad programs. Where is it safe for our children? I think twice about campuses. Where's the BDS movement? Where will kids feel safe?" The walls are closing in. Dear friends, members of the Women's Leadership Board, we have the power to act. And you are exercising that power today at this lunch. And you were yesterday, and we count on you tomorrow. And we're illustrating the power to act in the three people that we're honoring today, about whom you'll hear more. But just a quick word, if I may. I've known Deborah Lipstadt for many years. Deborah Lipstadt is a hero of the Jewish people, and you will see why shortly. Lauren Bush Lauren illustrates how someone can grow up in a prominent family and determine that she, on her own, by herself, is going to make a difference in the lives of now millions and tens of millions of people, many of whom, Lauren, will never know your name and will never recognize your face even. But they will be fed and given a new chance at life because you had the power to act and you exercised it. And while talking about you, I want to mention the gentleman to your right, because David Lauren, a former honoree of AJC and Lauren's husband, is himself another illustration of the power to act and a friend of AJC. And the third honoree, who I think will also move us profoundly, is someone whose name I suspect most of us in this room don't know, but the cause of the Yazidi people. The Yazidi people who have been marked for extinction is a cause that more and more of us have become aware of. And as a people who ourselves were targeted for extinction, what happens to the Yazidis has great bearing on each and every one of us. And as a women's leadership board, to know that as part of that process of targeting the Yazidis, they have especially targeted young women, kidnapping, enslaving, raping young women by the thousands. We must act. AJC has given us a platform that's bigger than any one of us, a global platform, a bridge, a durable bridge to act. Let's all take advantage, stand together, and exercise the power to act. Enjoy the rest of the lunch.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to introduce Lauren Bush Lauren, founder and CEO of Feed, a social business enterprise whose mission is to create products that help feed the world. Lauren's journey started while traveling with the UN World Food Program as a student. On her first trip, she was inspired and determined to create a consumer product that would engage people in the fight to end world hunger. In 2005, she conceptualized the idea for Feed by designing the initial Feed One bag, which when purchased feeds one child in school for 1 year. Every product sold by Feed has a measurable donation attached to it, and to date, this social business has been able to provide over 87 million meals globally throughout the World Food Program and Feeding America. Feed has also supported nutrition programs around the world, providing over 3.5 million children with vitamin A supplements through UNICEF. As a humanitarian and an American, Lauren Bush Lauren embodies the values and characteristics AJC celebrates and supports. AJC is very proud to honor Lauren with the 2016 Women's Leadership Board Award. Please join me in welcoming her. We thank you so much for being here today and for the inspirational and meaningful work that you do every day.
Again, truly, I'm so humbled to receive this. I am not a saint, a scholar, a survivor. Heck, I'm not even officially Jewish. So when the AJC called and told me about this amazing event, I again was extremely humbled and extremely honored to even be considered or one of the names discussed. I'm simply an individual who saw something that was not right in the world, hunger, and had to do something about it. I've spent the last decade traveling with the UN World Food Program and Feeding America, really seeing that issue of hunger firsthand and doing what I can to address it. Food, in my mind, is one of our most basic human needs, and yet many around the world go without. In my mind, this makes hunger one of the most pressing human rights issues of our time. Approximately 800 million people are hungry and don't necessarily know where their next meal is coming from. Poor nutrition causes the death of 3.1 million children under the age of 5 every year. And 1 in 4 children around the world are stunted mentally and physically because of poor nutrition. Even here in our own country, 49 million Americans are food insecure, relying on food banks and soup kitchens to get by. These overwhelming statistics became real for me over a decade ago when I started traveling as a student with the UN World Food Program. It was in these moments, in visiting a therapeutic feeding center in Guatemala, where I met a little boy who looked like he was about 3 years old, near death, literally because of starvation. Where I sat with a tearful mother in Cambodia who contracted HIV/AIDS and had passed that along to her newborn baby. In talking to Sudanese refugee women who've escaped horrors of war and to set up camp in Chad, and in meeting with families in rural Tennessee who barely have gas money to make it to food banks to retrieve their weekly groceries. I have been so inspired, in spite all these hardships and these hard realities that, again, so many deal with around the world. I'm so inspired by the resiliency of the human spirit, who against all odds still strive for a better tomorrow and a more secure future for the next generation. It is nearly impossible to plan for tomorrow when you are too consumed with the needs of today. I believe that this great disparity that exists in the world is not just a disparity of wealth. It is a disparity in people's ability to live to their God-given potential. And this is what inspired me to start Feed 10 years ago, a social business with a mission to create good products that help feed the world. I believe we are all called as individuals in our lives and in our careers to help repair and perfect the world, a concept in Judaism that I personally love, known as tikkun olam. There is no higher calling than this. And it is this powerful intention and will that truly embodies the AJC mission. I'm humbled to be in your company today, along with the other 2 amazing honorees. And I know that we all strive in our own way to perfect and repair the world, and I'm proud that Feed is my little way of doing that. It is in our power to improve the lives of one person, one issue at a time. And I thank you for this recognition on behalf of my small and mighty Feed team, as well as the people we serve. Thank you.
My name is Hillary Beckman, and I'm actually here to introduce Deborah Lipstadt, Professor Deborah Lipstadt. Deborah E. Lipstadt is the Dorot Professor of Modern Jewish History and Holocaust Studies at Emory University. She also happens to be a modern-day Jewish heroine who has fought relentlessly to defend democratic values for all. Her most recent book, The Eichmann Trial, published in commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the Eichmann Trial, has won the highest acclaim. An earlier book, History on Trial, My Day in Court with a Holocaust Denier, is the story of her libel trial in London against David Irving, who sued her for calling him a Holocaust denier and right-wing extremist. That historic, momentous trial, held in 2000, ends in a crushing victory for Professor Lipstadt, and AJC is very proud to have given significant support to the team assisting her. Quite simply, the trial dealt a severe blow to Holocaust deniers and anti-Semites around the world. Of course, AJC takes tremendous delight that a major film on the trial, starring Rachel Weisz as Professor Lipstadt, will soon be released. At Emory University, among many, many other roles, Professor Lipstadt directs the website known as HDOT, Holocaust Denial on Trial, www.hdot.org, which contains answers to frequent claims made by Holocaust deniers. AJC is also proud to have played a significant role in establishing this vitally important website. Professor Lipstadt is frequently called upon by the media to comment on a variety of matters. She has appeared on Good Morning America, NPR's Fresh Air, the BBC, The Charlie Rose Show, and is a frequent contributor to a wide variety of newspapers and journals, including the Washington Post and the New York Times. I ask that you please join me in giving a very, very warm welcome to the recipient of today's AJC's Jewish Leadership Award, Professor Deborah Lipstadt.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. I grew up in New York when this was dead space under the 59th Street Bridge. Who else? Who else? Come on. We never knew this was here, so it's wonderful to be here. It's also wonderful to be here because I can give life to a Jewish concept, the Jewish tradition called hakarat hatov, the recognition of the good, saying thank you. In Jewish tradition, and in fact in Christian, Muslim, in virtually every religious tradition, when we pray, we do a lot of thanking of the Almighty, whatever our conception of the Almighty and what she may be strikes us. I thought I'd get that in the spirit of the debate going on in our country right now. And sometimes, let me figure out who they're supporting. Sometimes people will ask, why do we have to go to synagogue, to church, whatever, and say thank you to God? Does God need our thank yous? But in Jewish tradition, the way we understand it is, it's not God that needs our thank yous. We need to be reminded of what others have done for us. We need to be reminded how thankful we should be with all we have been given and all the benefits we have. So I want to start today with hakarat hatov, primarily to the American Jewish Committee. One day, it was about 1996, a long time ago, I sat in a small room with David Harris and Bob Goodkind, a number of other members of the committee, and I briefed them together in a transatlantic call from my lawyer, Anthony Julius. We briefed them on the lawsuit that was being brought against me by David Irving, then arguably the world's leading Holocaust denier. And the fact that the suit had begun about 2 years before, so this was probably 97, and the lawyers had worked pro bono. But it was clear that we were probably headed to trial and that there was tremendous work to do, and pro bono was no longer really an option if we were going to mount a first-rate case. At that point, without hesitation, David and Bob said, they didn't say it using this term, but in Jewish terms what they said was, hinenu, here we are. And from that moment until the day of a sweeping and crushing victory in the year 2000, and then a number of appeals thereafter stretching into about 2002, 2003, the committee stood by my side. It established a fund to help with the legal defense. It allocated and appointed key staff members to work on this, who slowly over the years that became their main function, working as members of the legal team. And most of all, it was there for me, and it didn't talk about it. It didn't say anything because the lawyers asked them not to. That's a big thing for an organization. To allocate real funds, to work, to allocate staff people, and not to brag on it, because you want your supporters to know what you're doing. But David and those around him understood that this was something that shouldn't be talked about because we didn't want the other side to know that I had that support. So I am incredibly, incredibly grateful and remain grateful to this day. Not long ago, in December and January, I spent a lot of time on the set where the film was being made, and I sat with some of the actors one day and explained to them how I was supported. And they stood there. There were some Jews amongst them, non-Jews, but they all shook their head in admiration. And lest you think, and not to take anything away from the AJC, that it's only Jews supporting Jews, I also want to give a shout out to my home university, Emory University, a place founded by Methodists, who the same thing came forward and said, we are here to support you. We expect 3 things from our faculty: to be first-rate teachers, first-rate researchers, and to be an ethical model and a moral model to our students. And we can think of no one who exemplifies that more. We will do anything necessary to be behind you, and they were. And they also didn't talk about it. So at times when we feel so alone, on days when we're reading in the newspaper about a former mayor of London and a member of parliament talking with the absurd claim that Hitler was a Zionist, had anybody else said it, we would have laughed at its absurdity. But coming from a prominent person, and many other things like that, BDS, academic boycotts, fights against freedom of speech, all sorts of things. When so often we feel alone, it's necessary to remember that we're not. And that's one of the things that I learned from this. I also want to give one other shout out. The first gift to that defense fund came not from your board members and not from your machers and great supporters, but from the staff of the AJC, who heard about it and quietly made a gift to support the defense fund because they believed it was so important. So if you're part of this organization, those are the kind of people you have working for it and helping it do what it does. It was a very difficult time. I don't have time to go into it. You're all getting a book. I don't have to push the book because you've already got it. It's in that wonderful bag that Lauren designed, so we're a team, huh? My publisher thanks you. But I want to close by reading to you from the end of the book. The trial ended, and I was inundated with letters and emails from people from all over the world, people I knew, but mostly people I didn't know. And I just want to close by reading you some of those letters because I feel so grateful to have touched their lives. Dear Professor Lipstadt, you do not know me, and we will probably never meet. My mother was killed in Auschwitz. If David Irving had won, my mother would have been a victim a second time. So too would everybody else who perished there. I loved my mother very much and have not seen her since April 14th, 1939, when I was 14 years old. She was killed on October 23rd, 1944. Dear Professor Lipstadt, my husband served with General Patton and on a Sunday entered the camps at Dachau. He was a hardened combat veteran, as were the others who went in with him. They broke down in tears. He recalled an inmate pointing at him and screaming in Yiddish, "Du bist ein Yid? Are you a Jew?" My father said yes, he was Jewish, more yelling, and others gathered. They couldn't believe a free Jew walked the face of the earth, let alone a Jewish soldier. It took him 28 years to tell me this. He told me when we were in Jerusalem at Yad Vashem. He'd buried the memories of what he'd seen that deep. And finally, an email that came in. You are the great winner. Dear Miss Lipstadt, my name is Paola Castagno. I'm Italian, I'm 28 years old, and fortunately, I didn't know the Second World War. I read on an Italian newspaper that you won against David Irving. My grandfather Aldo remained 8 months in Auschwitz, like Disneyland. David Irving calls Auschwitz Disneyland for tourists. When he came back in Italy, he weighed 34 kilo for 1.82 meter high, 70-something pounds for about close to 6 feet. He died 3 years ago. I remember that he cried thinking Holocaust after 40 years. He didn't say me nothing about this, so I write to thank you enormously. I know also that my grandfather thanked you for your courage and that you speak about truth. Be my great hero. P.S. I'm sorry for my English. And then I write, and I close with these words, I did not feel as if I was anybody's great hero, and I still don't feel that, your wonderful and gracious introductions notwithstanding. 5 years earlier, David Irving had, as he told the New York Times, quote, taken me out of the line to be shot, close quote. Fully expecting me, as he also told the paper, to crack up and cop out, Irving may well have been surprised when I fought back as I did, ultimately giving far better than I got. I fought to defend myself, to preserve my belief in freedom of expression, and to defeat a man who lied about history and expressed deeply contemptuous views of Jews, blacks, and other minorities. For a long time after the court battle was over, I felt pain when I thought of the many people who had watched Irving savage their memories. I could not fathom what it felt like to have one's experiences not just denied, but deprecated and ridiculed. He makes great fun of survivors. It's a terrible thing. However, I did not feel just pain, but also a sense of privilege. I was reminded of the fact that Jewish tradition highly values acts of loving kindness, including visiting the sick, sheltering the needy, feeding the hungry, and welcoming the stranger. There is, however, one act of loving kindness that supersedes all the others because it cannot be reciprocated. Taking care of the dead is called chesed shel emet, the most genuine act of righteousness, because it is then that we most closely emulate God's kindness to humans, which can also not be reciprocated. For 5 years, I had the privilege to do chesed shel emet, to stand up for those who did not survive or who could not stand up for themselves. Being able to do that was thanks enough. I did not choose this field of research in order to perform this deed of chesed. I did not write my book, the book that got me sued, on deniers, expecting to engage in this act. I did not choose this fight. But now as I look back, even today when you so graciously honor me with this award, I am filled with gratitude. If someone had to be taken out of the line to stand up for Jews, for historical truth, for freedom of expression, for the fight against bigotry, I feel especially privileged, especially today when I receive this award, to have been that person. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Deidre Berger. I'm director of AJC's Berlin-Raymer Institute for German-Jewish Relations. 2 years ago, few of us were aware of the Yazidis. They are a monotheistic minority of ancient origins who live chiefly in northern Iraq in the Sinjar mountain range. Then in August 2014, ISIS fighters captured their villages. These barbaric troops murdered hundreds of men, women, and children, throwing them in shallow mass graves. They tortured and committed bestial atrocities against the Yazidis, whom ISIS considers wrongly to be devil worshippers. They seized thousands of women and children as slaves, forcing their conversion to Islam, raping and brutally mistreating women and children as young as 9, indoctrinating children, and turning them into child soldiers with a hatred of their own people. Who, if not us, know that hatreds threaten the core of our identity? So who, if not AJC, with the power to act, to give a platform, as David just said, can help the small minority of 1.5 million Yazidis find ways to tell their own story of enslavement. As Deborah Lipstadt teaches us, we cannot allow genocide to be denied. Indeed, the persecution and attempted extermination of the Yazidi minority illustrates vividly the threat that ISIS poses, not just to us as Jews, but to all who cherish Western values and challenge their worship of hate. Although Sinjar has now been freed, the Yazidi ancestral towns are partially destroyed and booby-trapped. Families have been wrested apart, often without knowing the fate of family members. Thousands of women and children remain captive in the hands of ISIS, subjected to daily mistreatment, humiliation, and persecution. Tragically, hundreds of children and young women have committed suicide to escape this fate. Others escape or have been bought free, sometimes to be rejected by their own families. Hundreds of thousands of Yazidis today are refugees. Last year, the AJC worked with IsraAid, the large private humanitarian relief organization, to give relief supplies to Yazidis in camps in northern Iraq. But what will happen to these people? That's what the German Yazidi professor, Jan Ilhan Kizilhan, asked himself. He convinced last year the German government to allow 1,100 of these Yazidi women, some very young, to come to Germany for trauma treatment. Germany is home today to the largest Yazidi population outside of Iraq, incidentally. We are very honored today to hear from 15-year-old Samia Sleman, one of the women brought to Germany to start a new life. She's accompanied by Abid Shamdim from the Yazda organization, who will translate from her native Kurdish for us.
نویم سامیه سلیمانه عمري 15 سال.
Hello everyone, my name is Samia Sleman. I'm 15 years old.
سيرو قال لك كيف خوش بوم هن همول في الحاضر القلق قسم بكين.
Thank you so much for being here today to hear my story.
استماع 2014.
And on August 3rd, 2014,
داعش شنقال برنو بهزار إزديا ومناطق شنقال هم برنو وزو عالمي إخسير كنو بهزار إزديارة.
ISIS attacked our areas and they ran over Yazidi homeland in Sinjar, and they killed and arrested thousands of Yazidis, including me and my family.
بابي مي ومامي مي وبابي مش ما قد كرن وبهزار إزديا باشقا كرن دسو شافي هم مش كاش داندنو مش ما قد كرن.
When we were captured by ISIS, they separated families, women and girls and children from men, and they executed all the men and they took hostages the kids and women and girls.
شش مهادوان زروجت دستی داعش دمام أجداكم أسقط كرم بليدان بجري.
I was forced to be separated from my mother and my grandmother, and they took me to a different place and they took me with the other Yazidi young girls.
الداكما بيردان بورورا كان سرسري وقوقي جام مش من نبن عمري وسيز سال اختصاب نكن آكتشكا.
When my mom resisted that I be separated from her because I was young, I was 13 at the time when they took us, and she was hit with a weapon by one of the ISIS members, and as a result of that, after a couple months, she died.
يا أزجي قد كرم شارع أسفروت ما يقول تيرو اختصاب ومكرون دسو شافي مش داندن واختصاب ومكرون عمري مستيز ده سال.
Just like all the other Yazidi girls, thousands of Yazidi girls that were held by ISIS, still some of them are held by ISIS. ISIS members sold us to each other. I was sold to 4 different men while in captivity.
بهزار قيتي إزدي عمري وان هاي السال هاف سال جداكا قد كرنو اختصابت كرنو الفروت نيكود تر أم قيتي إزدي عمل فروت هادي.
Yazidi girls as young as 7 and 8 were held as sex slaves by ISIS, and they were being sold to each other. I saw this with my own eyes.
تقولنا ما الصبايا بس شو ما مقيتي إزديابون أم هذه ثروتنا يكون تقولنا ما الصبايا.
Just because of our faith, they called us spoils of war, and according to their belief, they were allowed to sell us to each other.
الصدا زلامي إزديا كشتين طلبات دين ليكرن طلبة اختصاب ليكرن.
When they came, they gave Yazidi men two choices. They said, you either convert to Islam or you will be executed.
حتى أنها تشيلوا إنها تشيل مناطق ما إزديا حتى أنها الدستي واندنا وأف إزدي هم الفان كمبادنا.
It's been almost 2 years, and still about 40% of the Yazidi homeland still under ISIS control.
حالي وان كمبادا قالك بزحمة 2000 وهنا قيت شيطانا جدسي وان دركتنا والكمبادنا وعلاجا ونينا.
As I mentioned, about 5,800 Yazidi women were enslaved by ISIS. The ones that managed to escape, like myself, about 2,800 live in the camps with no proper treatment.
شو مساعدات شوارا ناتشن.
They don't receive the care they need after they escape ISIS.
حتى أنها حاليا 3000 قيت وجنيد ما إزديال دستي واندنا وتحبس كرينا واغتصاب كرينا وهر حالي وان أوا.
And the ones that are in captivity, about 3,400 are still being sold to each other among ISIS members in ISIS-held territory, and they consider sex slaves.
اب هزار ويت إزديا كتشك 4 سال و 5 سال عمري وانش داكا قد كرون بنا معسكرا شربيت كدن.
Hundreds of Yazidi boys as young as 8 and 9, they are being trained by ISIS in their camps to brainwash them and teach them the hatred towards their own people.
ابصدا إزدي الجيش قال دهاتنا كشتنيش نيزا وجبي خوارني شو هاتني.
Thousands of Yazidis died on their way to Mount Sinjar when ISIS attacked. Kids died because they didn't have water and food on that mountain.
حتى أنها حاليا باب ومامي وبابي ريمي مخطوف كرينا من نزان أبويا الصالة حتى أنها أم نزان كيدرينا.
Till today, I don't know what happened to my dad, my grandfather, and my uncle. We don't know anything about them.
بهزاري إزديار بهزاري ميرد إزديار هم توندا كرينا كشتينا من نزان شبيكرنا.
I'm not the only one, but many Yazidi families face the same thing, and they don't know anything about their loved ones that were captured by ISIS.
رجع شواتكم هم رابنا سرخو مساعدة في ملتي إزدي بكنو وجبي طنقافية دريخن.
I call upon you to help the Yazidis and help them get through this crisis.
بهزاري إزدياتين بين فان دولتا حياتا خو ببين حدودي قرتيا السجاع شواتكم حدودي مقدونيا فكنو أف إزدي بين فان دولتا حياتا خو خوش ببينن.
Thousands of Yazidis are right now on the Macedonian border trying to escape ISIS, and they're being held at the Macedonian border. They want to escape to Europe just to rescue their lives.
هون هم زانن جبرتشتين تنا فان دولتا الفان آوارتين حتى خوش نف دستي فان كافرة وظالمة دريخن.
They rescued their life crossing the seas and to get to a safe place from ISIS.
السرجع شواتكم زون ندران جنوسايدش إزديارة شيء بكونوا إزدياج في وطعي زحمة دريخن.
The world should help the Yazidis and consider what happened to the Yazidis a genocide and punish the ones that committed crimes against the Yazidis.
هون فان قيجو جنو زارو وفان ميراج دستي فان كافرة دريخن وبكرن بتشحالي وانكرن بكرن.
And rescue the ones that are in captivity still, especially the women and the kids.
اب هزارة إزدي هاتنا كشتن هاتنا اختصاب كرن رئاس الصوت أخذ جهين ما وهم مساعدة في ملتي بكن أسقيش كا إزدي عمري 15 سال الصوت أخذ جهين ما وهم مساعدة في ملتي بكن.
Today I'm here not to represent myself. I'm 15 years old, but to represent the rest of the Yazidis in captivity and the ones that are living in camps and to beg for your help to help them.
يا هم بزانا من الدستي 11 عمري من 6 سال بون التعبوا رزالات مكري محوت حاملة من دستي خشوتان. When I
was in ISIS captivity, I was 13 years old. I had no choice, but I tried to commit suicide, but I couldn't even do that while in captivity.
رجع شواتكم ملفات جنوسايد زونا درنكش إزديارة فبكن وجنوسايدش إزديارة فبكن وزقلك ممنوع ما وعسى قصة مكرو قصة يزدي.
I want you all to know that what happened to the Yazidis is a genocide, and the world should consider that what happened to the Yazidis is a genocide. Thank you so much for being here today, for listening to me.
I'm here to present AJC's Women's Leadership Award to Lauren Bush-Lauren, a witness to hunger who refused to remain silent, an innovator helping feed the world, a model of creative engagement. Your vision and resolve have won our great admiration. May 4th, 2016, New York.
I'm very pleased to present this award to you, Professor Lipstadt, the champion of the Jewish people and the rights and dignity of all people, guardian of historical truth and memory. Your great dedication and ceaseless efforts inspire us all. And this is for you.
I'm going to read what's engraved in her native language, and she can read it along while I read. Victimized but never conquered, you have courageously lifted your voice in the name of all who struggle against abuse and terror, who cry out for freedom.
Human suffering anywhere concerns men and women everywhere. So wrote Elie Wiesel in Night, his harrowing account of the atrocities and human genocide he witnessed firsthand in Auschwitz. 71 years after the liberation of the concentration camps, while the faces and locations have changed, human genocide continues to thrive, as does sex trafficking and the violation of women. And most often, the world stands by idly, even though most are aware of what's happening. When I met Samia earlier this week, I kept thinking about my own two daughters. Samia is 15 years old. She has experienced firsthand things that I won't even let my 15-year-old read about. And the biggest difference between my daughters and your daughters and Samia is luck. That's it. Our daughters were very fortunate to be born in this country. Samia was unfortunately born in war-torn Iraq. Some of you might be wondering what the plight of the Yazidi women has to do with an organization called American Jewish Committee, an organization that is regarded by many notable leaders as the de facto State Department of Israel and the Jewish people. AJC is also viewed by many as the de facto voice for human rights, civil liberties, and democratic values for all people. AJC speaks up on behalf of people around the globe who may be lacking a voice, an army, funds, or simply a place at the table. AJC prides itself on its unique access and its ability to impact change through diplomacy and advocacy. And AJC is distinguished by its tone, which is always nuanced, sophisticated, deliberate, and balanced. I want to conclude this afternoon's program on a positive note. Firstly, I want to congratulate and acknowledge Lauren Bush-Lauren, Deborah Lipstadt, and Samia, who all set a very high bar in terms of their steely determination, profound decency, and unflappable character. They inform and inspire through their passion in their work and certainly make me want to step up my game in all respects. Thank you so much for being here.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS, the Jewish Broadcasting Service, with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the JBS homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to GEM, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.